So today we're going to be talking to Jerry about a great topic, something that I've wanted to ask him for a little while now. If he was starting his real estate business over again today, what would he do to be successful? This is a crazy conversation, man. There's going to be, I think we're going to unpack a lot here. So let's jump into it.
There is a lot to unpack in it for sure, because, I made lots of mistakes in the beginning of my career. I did what everybody typically does, tells you to go out and door knock and different things and stuff like that. And every time I went to hear a new speaker, I would shift what I was doing because, that new shiny object.
Right.
So the biggest thing that I would start with, I would work on my sphere of influence way sooner in my career than I did.
Yeah.
I didn't start my sphere of influence probably till about year 10.
Wow.
And because it was not talked about that long ago, right? It wasn't, everyone talked about door knocking, crisscross directories, cold calling, and that sort of stuff, which is things
Hold on a second. Crisscross directory? What is that?
Remember a phone book?
Yeah.
Well, the crisscross directory used to have, by street, all the people that lived on that street with their phone number.
Okay.
So you could sit down and pick a street and say, I'm going to call everybody on Gordon Drive, and it would give you that list.
Smiling and dialing.
Exactly what it was.
Yeah.
Horrendous way to try to make a living,
No
in my
doubt.
opinion. And you know what? My career, I did well in those first 10 years. But my career really didn't start to really kick it into high gear until I got into my sphere of influence. So, Number one, when I sit down with new agents now, the number one thing I tell them, first and foremost, do your sphere of influence. Kick it off early, because it's easy to do it when you've got 15 or 20 people that you know in it.
Yeah.
It's not a big thing, but after you've been in the business 20 years or 10 years, it's really hard to go get those 400 people into a database, organized and set up and go through. So most people never really get back on track if they don't do it from day one.
So if you're just new in the business, how would you actually go about growing that sphere of influence?
Well, different ways. You can do it through open houses. You can do it through for sale by owners. You can do it through door knock. You can do it through farming a neighborhood.
Right.
And that's the other thing I talk about to newer agents. I say, when you start your business, pick 3 things, right, that you're going to start and work on in your business and master them, right? And number one is sphere. Everyone has to do that, because that's really where that's your easier business to do. And then pick your next 2 and become really good at them. I mean, one of the biggest things that I notice a lot of people don't do is they might do open houses or they might do for sale by owners, but they don't rehearse and figure out how to get better, right? And that's the key to it is development. Those are the things that really need to do is, if I'm going to do for sale by owners, you want to become the best realtor out there that's calling for sale by owners, so you get the appointment, get in the door. And that's how I started my career, was for sale by owners. And it worked. Is it painful? Yeah, for sure it's painful, but it also is people that want to sell their house. It's low-hanging fruit. They want to sell their house. You just need to get good at talking to them and telling and convincing them they need your service.
Yeah, and it's something that I talk to agents about all the time is scripting. And they have this massive fear of scripting because it's like, well, I don't want to sound like a robot. The whole idea of scripting is knowing what to say, when to say, how to say it, and then saying it so that it doesn't sound like you're a robot and it sounds very scripted and very rehearsed. You've got to internalize it and make it become part of your DNA.
Without a doubt. And you need to know the points that you want to cover off. You might not say them the exact same way to everybody, but you want to make sure you cover off those 12 points if you're having a conversation with somebody. And I've had realtors say to me, well, you've got great scripts, and I don't think I have scripts, but I do know what I want to get, the points I want to get across.
Right.
So I know that, hey, I've only gotten 4 of my 15 points across in this conversation. Why didn't I get the rest of these points across? What did I miss and do, right? And then the other thing too is sometimes you only need to get 4 points across to get the business.
There you go.
Right? One of my first courses I ever took was Floyd Wickman, and Floyd said, don't sell what blah, blah, blah will do.
Right.
Don't talk yourself out of a deal. So you've really got to develop and get better at what you do. So you get to read that person and say, okay, you know what? Kelly wants all the details like crazy, where if you're talking to me, don't drown me in facts and figures and stuff like that. Let's sit down and talk about the big picture of it. And so you will learn to read the people you're dealing with.
Yeah, a lot of people talk about, speakers, gurus, coaches, that sort of thing. They talk about the emotional buyer and the logical buyer. I think we're skipping 50% of the population of the people that are looking at real estate, and that's the emotional seller as well as the logical seller.
For sure.
There's 2 ways. There's obviously those two types of people, but there's also 2 ways to be able to speak to those types of people, and that's exactly what you're saying. Why go blah, blah, blah when the logical person may just want the blah?
Yep.
Whereas the emotional person will want the blah, blah, blah because you're selling them on the lifestyle of the home and the area and the community.
And that's again learning, to read your client. And we brought in great speakers. Jared Clerics is a great guy on learning how to read the different types of people that are out there.
Right.
You get an opportunity to go into these guys' courses and hear them speak. As I tell people, you don't go listen to someone like that speak to develop your whole process. You go there to pick up one or two nuggets that help you get better at what you're doing.
Right.
Instead of trying, it's like going to a golf professional that's going to help you tweak your swing versus rebuild your swing.
Yeah.
Well, if you've ever been to someone that rebuilds your swing, you want to give up golf for the next 6-8 months, right?
There you go.
And that's a little bit about the same with coaches, right? Is you get a lot of these coaches too, especially in today's world with YouTube, as we're on it, is there's a whole lot of people that are on here telling you how to do the business that have never sold a house, Kelly.
True. Yeah.
Right. So, you got to separate the shaft from the wheat, so to speak, and determine what's going to work for you. And, no one's going to sell houses like I sold them.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not going to sell them like you sold them. So you need to really develop your style, but you still need the basics of understanding how to move through the process.
Right. Okay. So let's bring this back. So focus on your sphere of influence. It sounds to me like you're talking a lot about self-development. So, courses, speakers, going to conferences, that sort of thing. Right. So educating yourself. What else? If you're starting over today, what else are you focused on?
Pick 2 areas that you want to do. Open houses, for sale owners, whatever they are, but pick 2. Just get good at them and do them. I mean, this business is getting in front of people and talking to people. It's not sitting at home in your basement on a computer screen hoping to get online leads. I mean, we've had a conversation about what I think of online leads in the past. It's so watered down that the leads are not worth the time or the effort, in my opinion, worth the time or the effort. There are people that work them, but I've watched those incomes of those people that do a lot of online leads over the last 10 years drop dramatically because of the quality of those online leads. There's nothing nicer than getting a phone call and say, hey, Jerry, remember me? We bought a house from you 10 years ago. Yeah, of course, blah, blah, blah. Come and list my house. Right. And that you do that from developing your sphere of influence. And now to develop your sphere of influence, you need to grow it. You need to find ways to generate leads that are going to work for you to grow that sphere of influence.
I used to love open houses. I mean, I did open houses. It's how I built my business. It's open houses in Calgary. And every weekend I was doing an open house. My wife was at home with the kids. I'm out doing these open houses. And I got really good at systemizing the actual process leading up to the day that I'm hosting the open, and then really understanding how to move people through the home while I'm in the home, and then knowing how to actually capture their information.
For sure.
Right. So I think it's, like you said, lowest hanging fruit. It is the highest rate of return on investment, in my opinion, in real estate today in terms of generating leads. It costs you next to nothing, just your time. Door knocking is the same thing. So let's talk about the sphere of influence, and specifically about marketing to the sphere of influence. What are some of the things that you're doing besides picking up the phone?
Well, my biggest thing for me was newsletters, a monthly newsletter that I sent out to my sphere of influence. It was mailed out, not emailed. I did try the email process when I had a few people saying to me, oh, you've got to go green, you've got to email versus a mail out. My engagement rate dropped on email. Open rates weren't very good. My newsletter wasn't all about real estate. It was a lot about personal stuff, what was going on. So, if you think about it, there was 4 pages in my newsletter, or 4 sections to the newsletter. First page was all about something we were doing that month. Would have been a hike somewhere, snowshoeing, whatever it was, talking about a new trail, just our lifestyle, the way we live life, right? And so people got to know me and know my wife, know my dogs. And then the next page in, we had market stats.
Right.
My wife and I cooked a lot. We actually then got into putting a recipe in the newsletter. And then on the back page of the newsletter was basically whatever might be happening in Kelowna over the next month or two. We would put in the farmers market schedule, we'd put in the Christmas craft fair schedule, music in the park, whatever was going on, we tried to promote Kelowna. And it's interesting, over the years, only ever had one person call me on the market stats in the newsletter, and that was one of my developers who we were doing subdivisions with. I had lots of people phone and talk to me, or if I saw them bumping and say, hey, that was a great recipe last month in the newsletter. So it's really funny that people want to, they want to know you, right? Know that what charity events you support, whatever it is. It's real estate stats for most people are boring. 25% of the analytical people are analytical. They'll find those interesting. The rest of us, not so much.
They're super fun and interesting for real estate agents specifically. They love looking at the stats, right? And then, this is why I tell people, if you're going to put out a statistical email, only focus on 3 data points. right? Don't overwhelm the reader with just this crazy economic outlook. Like, you're not an economist, you're a realtor. Your job is to help to interpret the data, but at the end of the day, focus on only 3 things. And I loved what you said at the beginning was ultimately you want to try to attract your tribe. You want to try to attract the people that you have the most in common with.
Right.
And so I love the fact that you personalized your newsletter. You talked about the things that you were doing and the things that you love to do. You included your wife in there so that people could get to know you guys a little bit better. Talk to me a little bit about that as an agent. Like, how should they actually be focused on the personal side, or should it be all about business today?
Well, I'll tell you a story about it. My mom was in real estate, and when she retired, she said to me, "Hey, would you take my 50 top clients and put them into your database and send them your calendar?" I said, "Sure, happy to do it, Mom." And some of them I knew, some of them I had no idea who they were. And after the first Christmas, and I was getting up to the next Christmas, I'm kind of thinking to myself, well, why are these people not getting my newsletter as well?
Yeah.
So I started sending them out my newsletter. And all of a sudden, some of those people started calling. And I had one gentleman call me one day, and he introduced himself. He said, "You don't know me." He said, "But I sure seem like I know you." He said, "How the hell are your dogs doing?" Well, I went out and listed their $2.5 million property.
Wow.
Right? Didn't know them from before, but he got to know me from my newsletter, and the comfort level when I went over to their house that night was like it was 2 friends sitting around talking. Right? It was very, very simple. So, do I think it's important that they get to know you? For sure. People want to know. They don't care that you sold 37 homes last year or 40 homes or whatever the number is. They want to know you care about them, and B, that you're involved and do things in your community. They want to know that you're a real person.
Right.
And I think that, Kelly, I believe is going to get even more important as we fall into this world of AI.
100%.
Where when you're looking online now, you have no idea what's real or not real.
Yeah.
But sitting down in front of each other talking, that's real.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's why, platforms like Instagram and YouTube, where you're watching this video on, there are applications out there that will create AI generated images of people and showcase a video. It's almost like we are not real people having this conversation. We are, but that technology exists today. And I think it is, like you said, it's super important to showcase who you are as not just as a business person, but also your personality, because like attracts like. And at the end of the day, I want to be able to work with people that see the world the same way that I see the world, that like to engage in the same activities that I like to engage in, and because I want that commonality. I'm like, if I'm working with a buyer and I got to spend all kinds of hours with these people, I want to have something in common to talk about while we're in and outside of the property, and maybe going for a drink or going for lunch or whatever.
Exactly. And that is a huge part of it, is you do spend a lot of time with your clients, right? And the thing that, I was at a conference when Jerry James was talking a couple years ago, and he put up a number on the screen. It was like $117,000. And I'm kind of thinking to myself, what's this all about? And he goes, that's the value of a client, right? Most people think of clients as being one-off. Your sphere of influence is, you want that client to list with you again, buy with you again. You want their kids, their parents, their friends and families to do business with you.
Right.
And you don't do that if you don't nurture your sphere of influence.
Yeah, that's some good stuff. So if you were starting over again, to recap, you would focus on building your sphere of influence, going out and getting personal development, like, educating yourself, knowing and understanding what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. And then lastly, you would focus on 2 areas and get really, really good within those areas, like open houses or door knocking. Highest rate of return for time and money spent.
Not only that, but also what fits your personality.
Right.
You liked open houses. I didn't like open houses.
Right.
You need to be able to find, look at the different ways to do it. There's people that do it on social media.
Yeah.
People that do it on YouTube, right? There's different ways to do it, and not everyone can do it the same way. So you need to find the ones that are, you think you're going to have the skill set to start to do without going out and having to learn from ground zero.
Right.
But definitely, and you know what? If you're doing something for 6 months and you absolutely hate doing it, do something different.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you hate doing open houses, people are going to know when they walk in the door that you hate doing open houses.
That's right.
So there's no sense being out there if you don't want to be there.
Yeah.
So you got to figure it out. And the only way you do that is you try some of the different stuff, but again, the personal development to make sure you're doing stuff right when you're out there doing it.
Right. Hey, listen, if you made it this far in the video, we appreciate you. We would love to hear what you guys would do if you had to start over in your business. Drop a comment down below. Make sure that you give this video a like and hit that subscribe button, because we're going to intend to put out more and more content like this, so you guys get notified every time we upload a new video to the channel.
Awesome. Thanks, Kelly.
All right.